Hey guys, my name's Rob Anderson, aka Chef, and I'm going to tell you all about the modified 2020 extreme hike we're calling the 2020 Extreme Hike 65 Challenge, aka Build Your Own Hike. If you haven't noticed, there's a global pandemic of what amounts to viral pneumonia, and since cystic fibrosis affects the pulmonary system, among others, we're doing everything we can to keep our loved ones who have CF safe. That means keeping distance, wearing masks, and going to extremes to isolate and build barriers. Unfortunately, that also means that we can't do the extreme hike in the same way we have in years past without putting lives at risk. So, the Charlotte chapter of the CF Foundation, a lot of your coaches, and a few random people we picked up off the side of the road have been deep underground in the laboratory of creative awesomeness, trying to devise a way to keep hike alive while extending that same courtesy to our friends with CF. This video gives you a brief rundown of what we've come up with. Now, before I jump into the deets, the 65 roses concept is going to play a vital role in this whole conversation, so it's important to give you a little background on what that is in case you haven't heard of it. Harry and Mary Weiss had 3 sons, Richard, Arthur, and Anthony. Don't worry, they all had faces in real life. This is just an artist's rendition. Calm down. Way back in the 1960s, all 3 of the Weiss boys were diagnosed with CF. That's a pretty scary experience today, but imagine the terror they faced in a world where most kids with CF didn't even live long enough to attend elementary school. Awful. Any mother can tell you that she'll go to the ends of the earth to protect her babies, and Mary Weiss was no different. She started volunteering with the CF Foundation and went to war. Richard, one of the Weiss kids, overheard his mom on the phone and approached her saying, "Mommy, I know what you're working for." Mary asked, "What am I working for, Ricky?" And since he had no clue what cystic fibrosis was, his little brain connected the dots and he said, "You're working for 65 roses." Overwhelmed by the adorableness, Mrs. Weiss responded, "Yes, Ricky, I'm working for 65 roses." So, since 1965, the CF community has adopted the term 65 roses to represent their efforts to curb the disease. Now, 65 roses can take a lot of forms, and in the context of Extreme Hike this year, we're translating each rose to 1,000 steps. Are you lost yet? That's okay. It'll be clear soon. Back to the hike. Essentially, we're taking the spring and fall 2020 hikes and smashing them together into a single hike event that's effectively virtualized. Here's how it works. 1, you're going to plan a 30.1 mile hike. It can be anywhere and any difficulty. You can do it alone, with family members, or in a small socially distanced group. The important part is that it's 30.1 miles in a single day. 2, instead of doing the hike training program on the weekends live like we used to and getting lost in South Mountain State Park, you'll be shooting for 65,000 steps per week as a training goal. Why 65,000? Well, in honor of 65 roses. See, that's the connection. 3, you're going to raise money and awareness in essentially the same ways you did before, by talking about your hike on social media, extorting loved ones for cash, raising the issue with philanthropic departments within the company you work for, etc. The only difference is that you won't be having huge parties to raise cash, because it's imperative that we respect social distance and act as ambassadors of safety given the severity of COVID and the potentially ruthless impacts it could have on our loved ones with CF. And finally, on October 3rd, we're all going to start our customized 30.1 mile extreme hike at the same time and then have a virtual post-hike celebration. That's the hike in a nutshell. The cool part about this setup is that you can tailor it for your skill set, schedule, and likes. So if you're like me and love trying to collect ticks in the woods, you can plan your final 30.1 mile hike somewhere in the mountains on trails in a nod to the old school pre-apocalyptic extreme hikes of yesteryear. If you choose to do your hike on the AT or in one of the many parks and recreational areas around the country, you'll have almost all the same features you would on regular hike, from endless hills to blisters and meandering in the wilderness wondering why you signed up for this hike in the first place. Now be sure you plan up front. There's a lot to take into account, and luckily there's lots of cool technology available to help you. All Trails is an excellent app that'll give you details on just about every hikeable trail in the country, along with mileage and maps and just about everything else you need to make it happen. Gaia GPS is another great one. Gut Hook is the de facto Appalachian Trail guide, with all kinds of live information on waypoints and AT-related mumbo-jumbo. Even REI has an app called the Hiking Project that'll get you all the info you need. In other words, there are lots of resources out there for you to hang your hat on when planning your 30.1 miler for October 3rd. And of course, your hike team and the Charlotte CF chapter are here to help and answer questions too. Alternatively, you can create a 30.1 mile urban hike. It won't take 3 hours to drive there, you'll have cell service, and the likelihood of falling off a mountain is significantly lower in this scenario. You can get as crazy as you want to with things. You can leverage greenways, roads, sidewalks, even walls if you're Spider-Man. You could even set up the start/finish line at your house, then hike a big loop so you don't have to drive or be driven anywhere at all. If you wanted to get totally sideways with it, you could walk back and forth on your street 271,000 times to hit the miles. We don't care, as long as you do 30.1 on October 3rd. When it comes to planning your urban hike, you may have to get a little bit more creative with Google Maps or Map My Run, but recording and reporting your hike and its progress is pretty easy given these popular apps. Strava is going to be particularly important, but more on that in a second. So to summarize, the 30.1 mile hike you do on hike day is completely yours to design and do. However, we do have a few suggestions when it comes to keeping yourself upright, safe, and sane in the process, so listen up. You can have a friend join you for some or all of it. There's always great talks when you're walking around aimlessly with good pals. You could breathe through a straw for part of the hike to represent the difficulties of living with CF. As you may remember from previous chats about fundraising, a lot of the inbound cash comes on hike day as you post your progress on social media. And the straw stunt could get a lot of attention and bring in the last of your cash. You could drag your whiny kids with you, or force your spouse to, quote, support you and keep you entertained by bringing up old fights you never seem to be able to stop having. Or drag your dog, cat, lizard, or ferret along with you for part of it. It doesn't really matter. Whatever's going to keep you sane while you stomp away the hours on hike day. If your family and or pets are sick of being around you all the time, have them set up aid stations so they can point and laugh at your pain while you refill your water and have a few PB&J sandwiches. We do recommend that you have some sort of aid station every 10 miles. You could even create a team and do a cumulative goal. So you can have a 3-person team and everyone does 10 miles with the last 0.1 together. Make it interesting with a ridiculous theme like tutus for the dudes or inflatable dinosaur costumes or something. If 30.1 miles feels like an unattainable goal, or you have to be back to your crib in time to finish binging 90 Day Fiancé before dinner, you could even make it less extreme. So hike 3.01 miles on hike day. Hike 6.5. Nudge, nudge, 65 roses, get it? You could spread the 30.1 miles over a week. Again, however you do it, you have a lot of creative license at your disposal, so make the best out of it. And remember, the reason we're all doing this is for our friends with CF. They need support from the foundation and the people who love them, and the best means for support is cold, hard cash. Ducats, doubloons, paper, the green machine, whatever you want to call it, this is about raising funds, and the CF community needs you now more than ever. So, now that you get the basics, what can you expect between now and October? We're going to do our best to give you the same guidance you'd get in a non-apocalyptic situation. A 2-month training program and calendar with a goal of 65,000 steps per week tracked using Strava, that orange app that I showed earlier that you can download from all the major mobile marketplaces. Access to the Xtreme Hike coaching team to help you out along the way. A fundraising page to point all your friends to the right place, just like we've always done. And of course, the opportunity to build your own hike and do it your way. Now, I mentioned Strava. Go download it if you don't already have it, and be sure to link whatever device/app combo that you're using to track steps so it'll be automatically recording your hikes and training. You'll shoot for that 65 roses step count, and we'll be doing some virtually coordinated weekend training activity too, which you can keep abreast of through the Facebook group. Shoot Stephanie an email if you're not part of that group yet, scherry@cff.org. It's an excellent hike prep resource. When you get on Strava, be sure to join the Xtreme Hike CLT group to see what others are doing and for accountability purposes. You should see the direct URL at the bottom of your screen right now if you're having trouble finding it through Strava's search feature. All that training will prep you for hike weekend, and we're going to do it all virtually while trying to keep a lot of the traditions alive. On Friday, October 2nd, we'll have a pre-hike Facebook Live pep rally, which will include a marginally inappropriate safety briefing by yours truly, a special speaker or two, and some tear-jerking motivation for hike day. On Saturday the 3rd, which is hike day, the official virtual coordinated hike that you planned for will kick off at 7:20 a.m. Why not 7 a.m.? I have no idea, I'm just the messenger. 12 hours and 40 minutes later, the hike window will wrap up and everybody who isn't finished by then will be shot and fed to the pigeons. Just kidding. But you should wrap up around 8 so you can get all your pics and videos submitted by 9 p.m. for the famous and always hilarious hike video spearheaded by Team Ultra. Now we'll be sending along more detail, but I would imagine there will be some virtual celebration going on that night too. But don't get too crazy, because at 9 a.m. on Sunday the 4th, we'll roll out the Extreme Hike video so you can relive everybody's painful adventures from hike day. We're also introducing the virtual hiker concept to broaden fundraising and participation potential. If you can't meet that $3,000 fundraising goal, or you can't do the physical hike because Joe Louis made you hike the Grand Canyon with plantar fasciitis where you almost died and you're still in a boot 8 months later, you can register to be a virtual hiker. There are no fundraising or mileage minimums, and you can create teams and add members in a similar fashion to Great Strides. Ultimately, our friends with CF still need our support even though we can't be on site to do the extreme hike like we normally are. This virtual build your own hike concept lets us keep things interesting, coordinate activities together, and celebrate our accomplishments safely while raising the funds that we need to find a cure for CF. Remember, we didn't say until COVID makes it inconvenient to show up for hike day. We said until it's done, and we meant it. We're so excited to go on this new journey with you, to set an example for virtual hikes around the country, and to come one step closer to making CF stand for Cure Found. What comes next? Check out the link below to register for the 2020 Extreme Hike. Very easy to remember URL. I'm sure that there is an easy to click on link wherever you're viewing this video too. And of course, if you have questions, email Stephanie Cherry at scherry@cff.org.